You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 21. This week on the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, we talk about how to select an outfitter and what to look for when you're getting ready to go on a guided hunt. And then we're going to bring you the Ruddy Duck as part of our duck profile segment. All right, welcome to this week's episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. I am your host, Josh Palm, and as always, if you want to interact with the show, we got a lot of ways you can do that. The first being our HP Outdoors Waterfowl hotline, which is 724-609-FOWL, 724-609-3695, and you can also reach out to us via Facebook and Twitter. You can touch base with us through our website at hpoutdoors.com, send us an email at info@hpoutdoors.com, and you can also find all of our past episodes on iTunes by searching HP Outdoors on the iTunes library. This week, we've got a great episode lined up for you. We're going to be talking about how to select an outfitter and the things you should consider when you're entertaining the idea of doing a guided hunt and some of the stuff that you should sort of check off before you select your guide. And then we're going to continue with our duck profile segment and feature the Ruddy Duck, which is not the most popular duck in the world, but it's a really neat and cool duck to talk about. So we're going to get into that a little bit. And joining me on the discussion this week, as he always does, my co-host and good friend, Daniel Vincent Harushka. Dan, how are you?
Vincent?
I literally don't know what your middle name is. I just threw that out there.
It's actually Garrett, not Vincent. Garrett. That's just awkward.
I did know that.
Oh,
What's up, Dan?
My bags are packed, my friend. It's our annual trip, and I'm ready to hit the road, ready to get down to the Eastern Shore. And, we've said it before, but it's not just about killing birds. It's, spending time with good friends, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's really kind of what sprung this week's main topic for the show, is because this is our annual guided hunt that we go down to on the Maryland Eastern Shore. And yeah, it's about a good hunt and getting an opportunity to hunt, see a lot of birds and that kind of stuff. But as much as it is about that, it's also about us getting together and getting the friends together and heading out and, a little, boys weekend type of thing. And, you and I haven't shared a blind since September 1st. So literally we're kind of bookending this season, where last year we had some chances to get together, periodically, where this year it's been kind of the start. And now here we're rolling down to the end. So I'm definitely looking forward to, catching up with you and, the other guys that are coming with us on the trip this year. And, so we're going to talk a little bit about the process that we went through, when selecting the guide that we go with, and, just to offer some tips and, sort of some rules of the road, so to speak, when you're going to go that route. So, there's a lot of things to consider. There's a ton of guides out there, and it can be a little bit intimidating. And, honestly, it gets to the point where you're just not really sure, you collect all the information and you're like, kind of, well, now what, So there's a little bit of just taking a leap of faith and trusting your gut there, but we'll try to make it as easy as possible. We're also going to profile the Ruddy Duck this week. And, it's not a real popular duck for guys to shoot, but they're definitely a cool duck. And I'm curious, Dan, have you ever shot a Ruddy Duck?
I have not dropped a Ruddy yet.
Yeah, I've shot several Ruddy Ducks. And the thing about the Drake Ruddy Duck is, a lot of times they're at their prettiest in the summertime. Not so much when we can hunt them in the winter. They're kind of browned out and stuff. So, but they're really cool with the bright blue on their bill and stuff like that in the summertime. So, we're going to profile that and then, get into the selecting the outfitter, portion of the show. Before we do that though, Dan, I know that, in the past we've had some trivia questions in regards to our duck profile segment. So before we get into that this week, I will ask you, do you have any idea what the oldest recorded ruddy duck is on record?
I don't, but I almost feel like this is kind of a trick question. And I think, they're just like little tanks. So I think that they might live, they might live longer. I have a feeling. So maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I'd say 29 years.
The information I was able to find said 13 years and 7 months.
Oh, so they're just short-termers.
Well, I mean, 13.7, that's a good run.
Yeah.
But I think any duck that's making the journey up and down the flyway, up and back 13 times, 14 times, you've dodged a few bullets in your day, I would think. So, let's go ahead and roll into that right now and not waste any more time and get into this week's duck profile segment featuring the Ruddy Duck.
All right, the Ruddy Duck. The male and female. They're both about 15 inches and right around 1.2 pounds. And like I said before, it's kind of like a tank. It's very short, thick neck, chunky body, stubby wings, and has a fan-shaped tail. And the male Ruddy Duck has a really pretty, brilliant, rusty brown back, rump, neck, scapulars, chest, sides, and flanks. And the crown, coverts, and hind neck are black, and the throat and the sides of the head below the eyes are white. And something really pretty about the Ruddy Duck is the bright sky blue bill that it has, and it's a very, very like a baby blue look. It's really nice. And the feet are grayish, and they're mostly silent, but the male does give a chuck-uck-uck-ucker when displaying. There's also an Andean Ruddy Duck, and that has white side of the head spotted with black, and a Peruvian Ruddy Duck, which is larger than the other two and has a completely black head. And the female Ruddy Ducks have a grayish-brown neck and body, and the sides of the head and neck are a dull buff brown with a single dusky horizontal stripe crossing a pale gray cheek patch. And the bill is a dark gray, and the legs and feet are grayish. And the females are pretty much silent. And breeding, they breed across the prairie region in North America, as well as the Intermountain West. And they also breed in the interior highlands of Mexico and freshwater marshes of Baja California. They go over through the Rocky Mountains and the Great Plains. And something interesting about them, most females do not breed until 2 years of age. And on average, they lay 8 eggs per sit.
It makes it tough for the Ruddy Duck a little bit, because if the females, some of them aren't breeding till they're 2, that means they got to make it through that first year. So that can be challenging for the population. But in general, the population of the Ruddy Duck is stable across North America. They had declined some in the past due to habitat and water contamination and that kind of thing, but they're actually not a very popular duck for hunters that I've mentioned a couple times. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service report only about 50,000 Ruddy Ducks are killed per year across North America. So compared to some of the other species, it's not really harvested that heavily, but the population numbers are pretty stable. As far as their wintering and their migration patterns, the Pacific coast states and sort of the western coast of Mexico winter roughly 55% of the Ruddy Duck population in North America. 25% will winter on the East Coast, and the other 20% will winter in the interior portion of the continent. They're thought to pretty much migrate at night. And, like you had mentioned, there's a couple different subspecies and things of that of the Ruddy Duck in Mexico and down in the Caribbean areas. As far as their food habits, they're a diver duck. They feed on pondweeds, various, wild celeries, seedlings, grasses, aquatic insects, larvae, crustaceans, things of that nature. But, during the breeding season, they feed mainly on invertebrates and things of that nature. So the ruddy duck, although not maybe the most popular hunted duck in the marsh, it's definitely a cool one. And little known fact is it was actually one of the most popular ducks back in the market hunting days. So many people don't associate them with great eating now, but they certainly were in the past. And that's pretty much it. Check out the ruddy duck if you haven't ever looked into them that much. The drakes during the breeding period and when they've got that sky blue bill are really, really cool ducks. Whenever I've been able to hunt them, they've been out of that color. They don't have that anymore. But, when you see them during the part of the year when they have that, it is really, really cool. Stands out. Definitely a neat little duck. So, do you ever see many ruddy ducks up your way, Dan?
Yeah, we had a bunch up here this year. They were mixed in with those redheads and cans. So
just chose not to harvest any.
It's scouting on my lunch break from work and really never had the shot. So
fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's roll into the sort of the meat of this week's episode and talk about selecting a guide and an outfitter and the things that you need to consider and should consider. And this is going to kind of be a partnered sister episode with something that we'll probably do maybe in the off season, and that's going to be talking about planning an out-of-state hunt and the things you should consider when you do that. And we're probably going to hold that off to the off season because a lot of times a lot more thought and a lot more research and time is put into a DIY or do-it-yourself type of freelance out-of-state hunt. So we're probably going to save it more for that time frame. But before we get started into how to select a guide, I thought one of the cool things we could do is talk about sort of the benefits of the drawbacks of doing a guide. And for me, one of the biggest benefits of hunting with a guide is that at times, as long as they're not super booked up, you can call short notice and get in and go on a quick hunt. So it's just sort of it can be easy. Just show up with your gun. They do the scouting. They've got the gear. They've got the decoys, all that sort of stuff. You show up ready to hunt. So if you live in an area where, the birds moving through your area, you get a good hard, migratory push and you want to get on some heat, you call up your outfitter that you got a relationship with and see if you can jump in a blind with somebody. And it can just be really easy to go that route. What about you, Dan? What are some of the benefits that you feel of hunting with an outfitter?
Pretty much like you said, you see, over Facebook and everything this year, everyone's saying, this is some of the worst hunting I've seen. So, that gives you an opportunity to get on some birds. You can call them up and you know what they're seeing and just go and take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think in general, I learned so much spending a day in the blind with a guide. And it might not because, they do a ton of research and all this stuff, but these guys have true life experience in the blind. These guys are doing this for their living. This is how they make, pay the bills. And, unfortunately the ducks don't, they don't work on their schedule. They do whatever the heck they want. And, the guide is left trying to figure it out and make decisions on the fly. And, when the going gets tough, you got to make tough decisions. And, I love just listening to them and talking about experiences and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, most of the time, a lot of prime real estate is going to be leased up and locked up by outfitters. So you get to hunt some of the best locations in the given areas. You can get a lot of knowledge. And, for the most part, if you've done your research and you're with a credible service, you can count on them having scouted birds and knowing where to be, for that day. So those are definitely some benefits there. What about some drawbacks? What do you think are some things that are kind of not the best part about using a guide?
I guess that depends if you've been with that guide or not. If you haven't, then you could get someone with not a lot of experience or just a bad situation, and that could really ruin a hunt. On the other hand, you don't get the full gratification of doing everything yourself as far as scouting and doing the calling or, putting a full effort into that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know that when we hunt with the guide, we still try to do as much as we can to make it feel like a hunt that we would do on our own. So, we set up decoys, we take down decoys. And for me, it's not just, I mean, I like doing that stuff. I'm a junkie with waterfowl hunting. Like I like setting up decoys, call me crazy. But I will jump it out in the impoundment with a guide and set up decoys all day long because I'm looking at how he's setting up decoys and what he's telling me to do. And, I'm picking his brain without him even knowing, that I'm just gathering all that information from him. So, we try to do that way. But for me, drawbacks of it is one, cost. It can be expensive, for sure. Two, there's not every guide out there is a great one. So you may run across a bad one and have a bad experience. One of the biggest things that this is definitely worth discussing probably a little bit later is expectations. It can be really tough to swallow when you spend money on a hunt and you're all excited and you get out in the blind and you don't see anything, or you don't have the hunt that you think, you envisioned or that you hoped for. So some of that depends on, the guide and what they've done. Others, it's completely out of their control. So it can be a tough pill to swallow sometimes, and that's a drawback for me. If you go to your normal spots, or you've done something that you scouted and it doesn't work out, water under the bridge, nothing really lost. Where if you put out your hard-earned money and you get the same result, it just stings a little bit more. So I think that's a drawback. And the final thing I think, for me, at least getting started when I wasn't super comfortable with waterfowl hunting and what was going on, is I think it can be a little bit intimidating at times. Depending on your guide and their, kind of bedside manner, for lack of a better term, they're providing you a service. They're putting birds and, they're trying to put as many birds as quickly as possible in front of you to have a successful hunt. Then it becomes your responsibility to make good shots and stuff like that. So I know guys can get frustrated if they're pulling birds into range and you're just sitting there whiffing, swinging and missing. I think that can build some pressure and can kind of detract from the hunt. So, it all comes with time and learning how to manage that kind of stuff. But, for me, that's one of the drawbacks, and one of the big drawbacks when I first hunted with a guide. But, I'd like to kind of focus the rest on just sort of the process that we went through and, the steps that we took when selecting a good guide. So let's go ahead and roll into the main portion of the discussion here. All right. So, I think that given today's day and age, the best place to probably start when you're considering, going with a guide is online. Get online, and there's a lot of different ways that you can research outfitters online. You can go through all the, the major forums that, focus on waterfowl hunting. A lot of states have like a guide association or a group, that you can go to and see what guides are members of that. And then, of course, on social media, you can search all the guide services and stuff like that have pages, and read people's comments and reviews and all that stuff. But, the only thing I would caution you about that is it's twofold. Just like that piece of special ground that you've found that you like to hunt, that is just a sweet honey hole, you don't like to share that, with too many people. You want to keep that protected. I was shocked at how many people do not like to post positive reviews about outfitters because they don't want everyone flooding that guide service and kind of pushing them out of, the available dates that they might want. So if at first glance you don't see a ton of positive reviews on a particular guide that you might be looking into, don't panic about that. It could be a good thing. It could be that people are just very hesitant to put out a lot of great information because they don't want all the guys' dates to book up and then not have as much opportunity. The other thing I'll add to that is, in my opinion and in my experience, people are much more likely to post a review on a public forum, internet, Facebook, whatever, when they've had a bad experience. Everybody feels like, that someone got one over on them and they want to put it out there and put this this guy on notice and that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind when you're reading these posts. People are more likely to post bad reviews than positive reviews, at least in what I've seen. But what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, and usually the good thing about outfitters is that they do give you the first shot of next year of coming back. You can renew or keep the same date or however. So most of them will work with you, but Yeah, I totally agree that you're gonna read more. People go out of their way a lot quicker if something bad happened to them than if something good happened to them. So I think you hit that one. You hit that nail right on the head there.
Yeah, because you got to figure if you're paying someone for a hunt, your expectation is that you're going to go there and you're going to harvest birds and you're going to have a good hunt because you're paying them for that. So when you go there and do just that, it sort of meets the expectation. When you go there and you don't do that for whatever reason, poor migration, bad weather, whatever it is, whether it's the guide's fault or not, you feel let down and you feel disappointed. And that's the person that's more likely to go and write a negative review or a not 100% positive review of their experience because it didn't meet the expectation, which isn't always fair to the guide because, they can be put in a tough position. So definitely keep that in mind. The next thing that I would say is a necessary move is to contact the guide directly. What I did when we started this is I collected a bunch of different guide services that I was interested in, and I emailed them all directly. And there was maybe, I don't know, a dozen or so that I emailed, and I waited. And the ones that didn't respond to my email, I didn't go any further on them. So once I sent out that email, I waited for them to email me back. And when they did that, that's when I started to move forward on them, called them directly, ask for, references and that sort of thing. Because, in my mind, if they're not willing to return an email and just, show me that they're going to value my business, that sort of sets the stage for a potentially bad relationship in the future. So I like an attentive person that, that treats it like a business and values their customer. So for me, that's kind of how I initially chose to go about wading through it. But I don't know if that's the right way to go about it or not, but that's the way I went about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, an online message, especially if they say, email us or contact us on Facebook or something like that. And if you reach out to them and you don't hear anything back, that's just bad business to start. So, that's a really good first step to take in deciding whether or not, it's, if you're not worth their time to get an email back, then you probably don't want to spend your money at that place. But also you were talking about references. And something, we have a couple friends that are whitetail guides and whatnot, and they said one of the things that is a red flag with references is if everyone you call has absolutely nothing bad to say about the place. Like, yeah, I'm sure that some people are going to go through there and let's say with a whitetail hunt, just shoot a monster and it's the best place. Well, that place might also have, substandard food or something like that they could talk bad about, but they're not because they shot a big buck. So get someone that just keep an eye out. If everything is really peachy keen and 110% A+, best place ever, then just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, obviously if a guide is going to use you as a reference and he asks you, hey, can I have clients potentially call you as a reference? He's going to be pretty confident that that individual has had a good experience with his service, which is fine. It's the same thing if you're applying for a job. You're going to list good references that can speak highly to your abilities and your character. But the more important thing is the questions that you ask that individual. How frequently are they hunting with the guide? When was the last time they went? If they haven't hunted with them in 6 or 7 years or, not frequently, that's probably not the best reference. You can obviously take what they have to say, but keep it in mind when, make sure you're getting references that have hunted recently with the guide service. That's the one for me. That's the biggest tick. If you haven't hunted recently, like if I was doing a deer hunt, for example, and he was like, oh, I harvested a buck back in 2007. The best hunt of my life. Well, that's great. What's happened since then? Well, I haven't been back, or, I haven't had any luck since then, or, whatever it is. You can ask those follow-up questions and get a little bit deeper into that stuff. So, you'd want to just carry the conversation, as you would want someone who was calling you as a reference. Be genuine And, you'll get pretty honest feedback, I think, from most people. And like I said, or like you said, I would expect them to say at least something negative. There's been a time or two that the birds didn't fly real good, but they're out there working their tails off. They're adding to the decoy spread. They're scouting hard. We're changing blinds midday to try to track birds. That's the stuff you want to hear. So although those are negative because they're not killing birds, that sounds positive to me. The guide's not giving up. The guide's putting in the efforts, and that's really all you can ask of them. So definitely things that you should be looking for there. Another big one I think is really important is to discuss the hunt with the outfitter. Ask them about the types of hunt you're going to be on. Do you want to, or make sure that the preferences that you have for the hunt matches up with what they offer. Are you looking to hunt ducks? Are you looking to hunt geese? Are you looking to hunt both? Are you looking to hunt, field blinds, pits? What kind of access to the blinds? Do you want to take your dad along with you who doesn't, who might have a difficulties getting down into a pit or something along those lines, or walking in a marsh, in thigh deep water, that kind of thing. Just make sure that you're clear on what you're getting into and what, expressing to them what your expectations are, because so oftentimes people are different, people are disappointed in a consumer relationship because of improper expectations. The old sales adage is under promise and over deliver. You want to tell somebody that, well, I don't know if I can get it to you tomorrow, and then boom, you get it to them tomorrow. If they say I'm going to get it to you tomorrow and then it's the day after that, you're disappointed. But if they would have told you ahead of time, I'm going to have it to you in 2 days, they meet the expectation, you're happy, everyone's happy. Same thing goes with the hunt. If you're saying, my dad doesn't get around as well as he used to, we'd like to hunt fields, A-frame blinds preferably, that kind of thing. And they say, that's what we do. We've got tons of, fence rows that we hunt and that kind of thing. Perfect. You know exactly what you're going into. And when you get there and they deliver that, everybody's happy and everybody, works out well. So I think that's one of the more important things that you should definitely cover with a guide.
Yeah, definitely the communication aspect of it. Like you said, the emails and the calls, and it's good to pick their brain. Like you said, if you have an older gentleman going with you that can't walk 3/4 of a mile through cut corn that you're not allowed to drive in, you need to make sure that they're aware of it and that you're getting what you're paying for. Like that's the last situation you want, is to have your grandfather walking through a marsh that you're sinking, almost up to your knees, and his hips breaking or something of that sort, or really struggling with it. So communication is a big key.
Yeah, especially too if you're going to have not only older gentlemen or ladies, but youth too. If you're going to have kids involved, that kind of stuff, just make sure that that you're lined up with the right guy for those kinds of scenarios. Another thing that I think is important to consider is lodging. You got to figure out, where am I going to stay? How close is it to where we're going to be hunting? Does the guide offer lodging? Are you going to stay at a hotel locally? Something to consider is, if you get wet waders or you get wet clothes, you're going to have access to a washer and dryer if you need it. Those kinds of things are, usually not come into play, but it's good to know where that stuff is if you get in a pinch. So, we stay at the same hotel, every time we go up there. We know it's close to where the guide operates out of. So, it works really well for us. And, I don't have any hesitations. Our guide actually offers a lodge that we choose not to stay in, simply because of the number of guys we have. And, honestly, it's just more cost effective for us to stay in a hotel with the 4 or 5 guys we have and just kind of, we crash for a night or two and just split up the cost. So for us, that works the best, but you want to make sure where you're going to lay your head down at night after you put a long day in the field. So, that's where I'm at with that. What do you feel about lodging, Dan? I know you like what the heck's that nursery and Princess and the Pea, wherever. If it's not like the perfect mattress, you can't sleep or something like that, right?
What? all I know is that you need a fan blown at night, or else you can't sleep.
That is accurate. That is 100% true. I do need a little noise in the room. All right. Some other things is, if you're going to be hunting out of state, you're not going to be hunting in the home state that you normally do. You want to look into the license fees, things that, what does the state have? Obviously your federal stamp's good, but figure out your state fees and your state stamps. Make sure that they're valid for the days that you're going to want to be there. If you're going up to Canada, it might be different. So make sure you thoroughly check the regs if you're going to go outside the U.S. Not really sure much more else to add to that. I think most places you could probably buy the licenses online. I just bought my Maryland one last night or the night before. Super easy process, no big deal. But you want to make sure that you know what you need to have, because the guides will need to record your license numbers and stuff for their bookkeeping and everything. So I don't know if there's anything really else we need to say about license fees. What do you think, Dan?
No, I think, that's a given.
Yeah. All right. Here's the big one for me. One of the big ones, price. When I started, when we hunt on the Maryland Eastern Shore, it ranges up there from, I don't exactly know what the complete high and low ends are, but I was considering anything from 150 a day per gun to 200 a day per gun. And I broke them out. So I had like 3 or 5 at the 150 range. I had 3 to 5 at the 175 per day and 3 to 5 at the 200 per day. And then I sent the emails out. So you start there, but then you also have to figure out with them, what does that include? Is that a full day? Is that a half day? Do they hunt ducks and geese? Some places might do like a duck hunt in the morning and the dove shoot in the afternoon, things of that nature. Make sure that you know what it is you're getting and what you're paying for. Because like I said, communication is key. You want to make sure that whatever your expectations are for the hunt, that guide service that you're going to contract with can fulfill those expectations. So, a lot of places are half day, but a lot of times if it's not going good in the morning, you'd hope that the guide would stick with you there for a couple hours into the afternoon to see if you have a chance to tag a few. So I think price is a big one. There's a lot of guys that are guiding hunts out there. So don't feel like you have to pay top dollar to get a great hunt, because you don't. That's not to say that you can't pay top dollar and have a fantastic hunt, because you can. But don't let price be the ultimate deciding factor. Let it be a tool as part of your research. Put them into categories, look at the different tiers, see what you get, for spending $50 a day more, and if that's worth it based on what you're seeing at the lower tier. So that's where I stand on price. Dan, what say you?
Yeah, most of the time I would say you get what you pay for, but that, like you said, it's not always the case. And there's a lot of guys that have been in business for a long time over there, and they have returning customers that they treat well, and they're comfortable with the living they make, and they're not trying to to steal your money, so to speak. So you don't have to go with the top price place to get a really bang out hunt. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times too, guides thrive on repeat business. I mean, they don't make their living on you and me going to hunt with them one time. They make their living on the guy that comes back to them year in and year out. So they want to make it, an affordable type of, I shouldn't say affordable, but they want to make it a good value for you. And everyone's definition of value is a little bit different. And, his overhead might be different than the other guy's overhead, but that doesn't mean that his hunt is any different or any better or worse. So again, things to look into. To go along with that, another thing that you need to look at very, very carefully is the deposit policy. What do they require up front to secure the date? How far in advance to the hunt do they need it? And then once you put the deposit in, what does that mean? Can you still cancel? Is there a deadline where you can't cancel past and get your money refunded to you? How far in advance from the day of the hunt does the final deposit need to be in? Can you bring it the day of the hunt? Those sort of things. You just want to make sure where you stand with that stuff in case something happens where you can't make the hunt, or something in your life changes where you need to make an adjustment. Will they let you move to another date if they have availabilities? Things of that nature. It's worth having that conversation, because I'm certain that it happens pretty frequently that, stuff comes up where people can't make the hunt. So definitely want to discuss where you're at with that before you shell out any cash.
Yeah, I think when did we send ours in? Must have been like July. Was it that?
Yeah, we typically book our date in the summertime, and our guide requires a 50% deposit, so we send that in, and that firms our date, and then we don't have to pay the balance until the day of the hunt.
Yeah, or even later. Usually he doesn't even care that opening day, usually just before we leave. But he knows us too now. So
well, I think too, our guides, in our experience, he wants to make sure that you're satisfied. So when we go down there, if we hunt 2 days, like, he doesn't collect any money from us after the first day. And based on the second day, we've hunted down there where it's been tough, and we've never got to the point where I felt that this was needed. But, I've almost been to the point where I feel like if we went down there and just had 2 completely flop days, that he would cut us a discount and either, not charge us full price, for the second 50%, or maybe hook us for the next year, something of that nature. But I've always got the impression that was something that he was aware of and kind of sensitive to. And if he didn't feel like we were having a good experience, that he would do something to help us with that, which by no means do I think is a must and an absolute. Part of hunting with a guide is the acceptance of the fact that you are in fact hunting, and nothing is guaranteed. And that's why I think it's important when you go into a guided hunt, if you're going there just to slaughter ducks, you're going to be disappointed at least at some point, because it's just not always going to happen. So if you can't go on a guided hunt and also enjoy your surroundings, enjoy the people that you're with, enjoy the time in the field, you're missing a big part of that hunt. So that's my piece there. But our guide's always been really good to us in that regard.
And it just makes me think of the expectations, like the normal expectations of our hunts. We know better than to think that we're going to go out and limit out every time. So why would we have that super high expectation? Yeah, they're out there scouting every day, they know, but still, I mean, when it comes down to it, weather and, just the time of the year, like, so many different things can change what these birds are doing. Feed, what did the farmers plant that year? Like, things change, and there's so much out of their control that it's really not fair to hold them to that high of a standard, I think.
Yeah, especially, for Eastern Shore, definitely with the ducks. The ducks are hit or miss. When they're there, they're there. When they're not, they're not. Canada geese are different. We've pretty much every time we went down there and hunted targeted Canada geese, we've limited out. So if we were to go down there on a Canada goose hunt and not limit, I don't know how I would feel. I wouldn't at this point, we've built enough relationship with them that I wouldn't put any blame on them, but it would feel strange. We've had really good success down there with Canada geese. So, we're getting ready to go down there, and I would anticipate one of the 2 days that we would shoot a limited Canada geese. That's just my expectation. And if there's not ducks down there real heavy in our area, I would expect that we're going to shoot close to, if not limits, both days. That's probably wrong expectation. I only have that expectation given on past history. If we don't do it, I'm okay, because like I said, even if I didn't squeeze the trigger on my gun the entire time we're there, I'm still going to have fun hanging out with you guys. But, I think we're going to have good hunts. I have confidence in them for sure. And, the weather's been good. I just, we'll see. We'll see what happens. A couple of last things here to consider. You want to have a discussion with your guide about the specific gear that you're going to need for the hunt. Do you need waders? Do you need chest waders? Are hip boots going to be okay? Are you going to be hunting fields? What are the conditions that you're going to be in? Here's another real big one that you need to have the discussion on before you even think about it with a guide. If you have a dog that you want to bring, you need to have the discussion with the guide first. They may be okay with it. They may say, I'd rather not. There's a liability involved there for me that I would just prefer not to. We have dogs, we do our thing, whatever. You need to respect the guide's decision on that. And if having your dog with you is an absolute deal breaker, then you need to probably move on. But definitely have that discussion with your guide before you head down. What do you think, Dan? Anything more to say in that regard?
No, some will let them take their dogs, some don't. They have their own dogs that they run, and just like you said, communication.
Yeah. The last two things for me is things that we've actually already touched on, but I'm just going to hit it one more time very quickly. Have an open line of communication with your guide. And if it's a situation like for us, I live 2.5 hours from the Eastern Shore. I like going up there. I'm looking to build relationships that I can go with, the same guide for a long time. I'm trying to build a relationship to where if I, get a free Saturday or something like that, or if my son and I get a free Saturday when he gets a little bit older and I call up there and I say, hey, any chance you got an opening in a blind, that he'd be like, yeah, come on, let's do it. That kind of thing. That's the type of relationships that I'm looking for, that I strive to build. So if at any point that I felt like I was getting pushback and that they weren't receptive to that type of relationship, I think it would be time to move on. But I mean, you've been texting back and forth with our guide for the last 2 weeks, talking about birds. And last year we didn't even actually get to go down there and hunt with him because, you had the birth of your 2 daughters and just life got in the way a little bit for us. And, he was sending you pictures and we weren't even down there, just showing us what was going on and stuff. So, I feel like they're our guide and there are guys we use, but I consider them friends, and I look forward to getting down and seeing them and catching up and, sitting at the Bluebird Inn or whatever it's called, the Blue Jay, whatever it's called. And
Bluebird Tavern,
having a couple, a couple pops with them when, sitting around after the hunt. So I would definitely encourage you to try to build, a relationship with your guide, because it just will make that hunt that much more enjoyable. It's always better. We talk a lot about bringing people into the field and introducing people to the hunt, but, it's always better to share a blind with a bunch of good buddies. And the closer to that bond that you can form with your guide will just make the hunt that much more enjoyable for you. So, that's it for me in a nutshell. That's kind of my, my list that I consider. Anything else that you think, Dan, is important when considering a guide?
Yeah, I was going to say, we kind of just, it was high level kind of saying, talk about it, but just a couple of things that you might want to ask them. I just have a couple other questions written down here. So, don't be afraid to ask them how long they've been in the business. The guy we go with, he's the 4th generation on the Eastern Shore. So, he's been around. He knows, his whole family. That's what he grew up doing. And something important to ask, are they licensed? To be a guide and to get paid to do that, they have to be licensed. Ask them, how many different properties do they have to hunt? How often are those properties hunted? Are they hunted every day? Are the local birds, they know every pit that you have out there? It's just a few important things to do. Do the guides go out and scout? How are they getting their info? Are they out there when they're not hunting, or are they hunting on their own? And, I wouldn't be afraid to ask them, how experienced are your guides? Are they good callers, or, as you have a couple newbies that just came down here, which that doesn't mean everything, but, guys that have hunted an area, experience does count. So, one other thing, I know you did a ton of research before we picked ours. And, we called where we hunt and we actually named the guide that we wanted. And that's because Josh did an extreme amount of of research before we went down there. So one other thing to look for online would be publicity that's not paid for by that guide. And what I mean by that, people can put ads out there all day saying that they're the best, but, if someone comes up with some kind of an award, or, giving free hunts for something, check for something in that public eye kind of figure. So those are just some other things that I'd written down, but I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah, you make a good point that I'd forgot to mention, that when you're hunting with a guide service, oftentimes you're not hunting with the actual owner of the guide. You're hunting with one of his guides that work for him. So, knowing the type of people that he has working for him is important. And, like you mentioned, when we set up our hunt, we asked for our guy by name and had a blast hunting with him. And every time we've been down there, we've had him again, and oftentimes we'll have 2 guides with us. So, we got 2 guys calling, and, but we've had our guy, KC, with us every time. And, we just enjoy spending some time with him and doing it like that. So again, hunting with a guide can be an absolutely great experience. I can attest to that firsthand. Some of the best hunts I've had have been with an outfitter. But I do think it's important to do your due diligence and your research before you commit to hunting with somebody. And if you go on the hunt and you don't enjoy yourself for whatever reason, don't be afraid. Don't think that all outfitters are incapable of having a great hunt. Just, move on to the next one. And, when you have a great experience with a guide, whether you kill birds or not, if you have a great experience, you'll know it. And that's really what you're looking for. So if you've got anything else that you like to consider when you're selecting a guide, or maybe some things that a guide that you hunt with does regularly that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to do so. And we would love to hear your all's experiences with guides, and good or bad. We'd love to hear from you guys and talk about your opportunities that you've had with outfitters. So hope you guys enjoyed that discussion. Hopefully it'll be beneficial and helpful to you next time you're thinking about selecting a guide for your next waterfowl hunt. All right, Dan, we're kind of here at the end of the show this week, and we've been just burning up the group text messages and stuff this week. You guys are leaving to come down to my place here in Virginia tomorrow morning. I'm fired up to get you guys down here, and I'm ready for this weekend. But before we wrap the show, anything that you would like to add before we say farewell for this week?
Well, I don't know if you mentioned it at the beginning, but we do have our a private group on Facebook where some of the listeners are interacting with us, and I've just had a ton of fun with that. You get the notifications, and the guys are putting up banded birds, or the last hunt of the season, and it's just cool to interact, and some are claiming that we're helping them a little bit. So I don't know how true that is, but we're doing our best on that end, and we appreciate the positive feedback for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did forget to say that earlier in the show. We do have the closed private group on Facebook. I believe you can find it by searching the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast listeners group. And we also have a couple other things. We have our newsletter that we're getting ready to be more active with. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for that, you can do so on our website or our Facebook page. And then we also have our listener survey that you can get to through our website at hpoutdoors.com. And basically just your opportunity to give us a little feedback, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you'd like to see on this show. And we do value the feedback. We take everything that you all tell us to heart. And the thing that I always kind of wrestle with is there's a lot of guys that give us feedback about things that they would like to see covered in the show. And it's a weekly show, and it allows us to get to a lot of different stuff. But if you have a specific question about a specific thing, so if you send us an email and say, hey, I have a question about field hunting for geese. Okay, we'll probably hit that at some point if we haven't, touched on it already a little bit. But if you have a specific question about field hunting for geese, if it's something that you're experiencing in the field that you think, can be changed or can be better, and you just like a little bit of a second set of eyes or an outside perspective on something, feel free to just send us that specific question. And we've done that a bunch. We just, guys will write us an email and say, this is what I've got going on. What do you think? I'll throw out some, some best guesses that I would consider given the situation that you'd, related. If you call us on our hotline, I know we recently got a call, and it was pretty early in the morning, and the gentleman was on his way to the blind, and he was like, well, I hope it's not your home number that you're waking us up. I can assure everyone that it's not our home number. It's a voicemail box we have set up, so you can feel free to call that and, lay it out there as far as what's going on. If it's a great scenario that we think can be beneficial to everyone, we'll play it right here on the show and let everybody hear it. And then we'll discuss it. And, cause like I've always said, if you've got that question, there's somebody else out there that's got the same exact question. So, I can't tell you that we have the right answer. I may even give you the wrong answer, matter of fact, but I'll try to give you what I think I would do. And I know Dan does the same thing. So, feel free to, interact with us in those regards, and, take advantage of the survey. And we're only using that information to help to try to bring you more content that you guys are interested in hearing. So thank you again for everyone that's participated in that. Thank you to everyone who's filled out the 5-star reviews on iTunes. We greatly appreciate that as well. If you haven't had the chance to do so, please feel free at your earliest convenience. Okay, what do you think, Dan?
One last
Go ahead
question.
Okay.
What's the status of your beard right now?
Oh, it's boss right now.
It's just ready to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I actually had someone ask me today, as a matter of fact, if my face is actually warmer because of the beard. She was like, does your face actually, handle the cold better because it's got that beard on there? And I was like, as a matter of fact, it does. I got to tell you, a little more salt and pepper in there than what I'm accustomed to.
Oh my gosh.
Kids will do that to you, I think. But all in all, it's ready to go. It's on point. And
good.
I'm ready to get it on this weekend. So
I got the canvas back face coming down, so
nice.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Chestnut. Awesome. I might have to pluck a few of those to use in my new fly fishing tying.
They glisten, baby. They glisten.
I'm sure it's just a solid presentation that I can use. Your chestnut beard. All right, let's pull this puppy out of the gutter and wrap it up with this week's parting shot. So this week for the parting shot, we wanted to just follow up to our discussion on selecting an outfitter. And as we mentioned, you're not always going to be hunting with the owner of the guide. You may actually be hunting with a guy that's employed by that guy. Please don't forget to tip those guys. A lot of times, the majority of the money that they will make on the hunt is the tip coming from the blind. If they're out there busting their backs, loading decoys, all that kind of stuff, out in the cold, fetching up birds, all of that, please recognize their effort. Those guys are out there for one reason, to make sure that you guys have a really great experience with them. So if they're putting in the effort and the time and treating you like you want to be treated, please don't skimp on those guys, and make sure you help them out as well. Part of the experience, like I said, is building that relationship. And, we want our guide to know that we really do appreciate the time and effort that he's putting in to make sure that we get on a great hunt. So next time you're out in the field and your guide's out there busting ice or chasing up decoys, that kind of thing, make sure you take care of them when it comes time to tip. All right, that's going to do it for episode 21 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed our discussion about how to select an outfitter and some of the tips that we shared that we use when selecting an outfitter. We hope you enjoyed the Ruddy Duck profile, and we will continue to forge ahead with the profile segment in future episodes. If you haven't had a chance, check us out on iTunes. All of our past episodes are on there. Like us on Facebook, shoot us a message on Twitter, and we'll talk to you next time after Dan and I get back from the Eastern Shore. So for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.